Welcome to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, created and hosted by Scott Knudsen, to explore the crossroads of horses and business. Now here's your host, Scott Knudsen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. I'm your host, Scott Knudsen. If you're listening to us on the radio, on KCAA, the NBC affiliate out in California, or watching our podcast on one of our many platforms, we really appreciate it. Today, we have a fun show. We're going to take you behind the scenes of a major network with Brett Nierengarten. Brett is the editor-in-chief of the Cowboy Channel. Brett, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, man, we're going to have a blast. So, heck, let's just start off with, what is editor-in-chief for the Cowboy Channel?
It's a loaded question to start with, but
Absolutely.
Everything that touches the cowboychannel.com, the website, is kind of stuff I deal with. So it's the ads, it's the video content, it's the written content, and from start to finish, it's really, like I said, the simple answer is anything involved in the website is what I'm in charge of. But the thing that I most enjoy, the thing that I'm most proud of, is more the content strategy. So what a rodeo will look like from start to finish on the website, what clips we pull, why we pull them, when we pull them. Like I said, that's all me from the top down. I'm still relatively doing that, so it's been kind of fun to have my own strategy, have my own imprint on what the Cowboy Channel's day-to-day looked like after being here for a few years.
Oh, man, that's so cool, man. I know there's so many people listening to us today or watching the show. They're like, that's got to be the coolest job, man, because it's such a great network. So where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Fort Worth or around the rodeo industry, or where did you grow up?
No, I did not. I'm actually from Minnesota originally. So I grew up in the Minnesota suburbs, and the way that I kind of got here to the Cowboy Channel was there's two parts of it. The first part is that I always just loved sports. So I wanted to be involved in sports in any way. I went to college to go to sports journalism. I went to Nebraska, was in sports journalism school. And so I actually have a different view of rodeo specifically, because when you're in this business, when you work at the Cowboy Channel, you have to kind of incorporate yourself in the Western industry. You learn that pretty quick, that they're so, obviously more than any other sport in any other world, they're so interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
But from the other part of it, I really approach it from the sport of rodeo. What can I learn about the sport of rodeo? What can I learn about the history of rodeo? And so that's kind of how I ended up here. Is they gave me the best opportunity and the most opportunity to have control of what I wrote about, what I talked about, and really be involved and ingrained in a sport like that, which is kind of how the Cowboy Channel, the opportunity presented itself. And that's what excited me about it, was not necessarily any background in Texas, any background in the rodeo industry, but just the sport and the NFR and the chase for a title. I think you can relate to any other sport, because it's just, those things are universal. The quests, right, the winners, the losers, the failures, all of that. I think that's universal. And so I really wanted to bring that out of rodeo and have the opportunity to do that for rodeo in a way that I don't think has really been tapped too much until the Cowboy Channel came around.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Well, that's so cool. So did you play sports growing up to get, or in high school and college, or what did you do to kind of, you love sports, so how did that manifest?
Yeah. I played football in high school, and then we also had a news show that I wish I could say like won some awards to make it reputable, but it was very reputable. I just have no way to contextualize it in high school. But we had a little 20 minute magazine type show. But the thing that made ours different was we had no faculty involvement, so everything was written, shot, edited, produced by high school kids. And so I headed up the sports section there. So I played sports and also got my TV chops from a young age, 15, 16 years old, junior and senior, doing that program, being involved in that, which is really where I found out, because it's one thing, to be 12 years old and say, I'm going to be on Sports Center one day, I want to talk about sports, blah, 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 blah. But this program actually, like when I was still in high school, I could be like, oh, wait a minute, this is what it takes. Now that I've seen what it takes, I do still want to do it. I want to pursue it. So I was really thankful for that opportunity to, again, not have to hang it up or anything like that, or not have to choose. It could be during the fall, I would play football. Then during the winter and spring, I would focus on reporting about the hockey team, the basketball team, the baseball team, whatever it may be. And those were always a blast.
Man, how cool is that to know your passion from the beginning, from being such a young age to getting to live it, and getting paid for it. So I think I read somewhere you would even announce the backyard games. back in the
Yeah.
day.
Well, that's what you said. How cool to know what you want to do unless you were friends with me, because when I were friends, it'd be me playing quarterback in backyard football, just going, Brett, back to pass, looking right, looking left. So it was from, like I said, it was charming at first. The first couple times you're like, oh, that's hilarious. He does. And by the time that, you reach 10, 12 years old, I've been doing it so long. My friends were like, can you just play the game? Like, can you play quarterback without telling us what's going on here? Like, can you chill out? But I've got used to do that, used to set fake scenarios of fake buzzer beaters, running down the clock type thing, 3 seconds left. And I'd announce the whole deal. So yeah, anything that you could announce, anything that you could to turn the production, the TV side of it, even when you're 10 years old, I was kind of involved with that from a young age.
Man, that's cool, man. That's so cool. You're still getting to do it, man. That's really neat. So I read you love stats. So in history. So the sports, sports stats, sports history, anything like that. And how do you think, even at a young age when you were studying the stats of different, football players, how do you think that helped you transition to what you're doing now?
That's the biggest thing for me, because like I said, I approach it through the different door. Everyone wants to work here because they want to be involved in the Western industry. They love horses or they love rodeo. But again, like I said, me, it's from loving sports. And that's the thing that translates universally across all sports. I figured that out pretty quickly, that when you're looking at rodeo, when you're looking at bull riding, for example, it's like baseball. It's all riding percentages, average scores, average stock score, how long you last on the bull, stuff like that. Saddle bronc riding, timed events, same kind of thing. It's how many 85-point rides, what percentage of your rides go for 85 plus points or 90 plus points. And I realized, and Mike Snow, another guy that I work with, who I work closely with, who's also a big sports fan, we kind of realized that all that information is available for pro rodeo athletes. It's not that no one has kept the stats before. It's just that no one has contextualized, and no one has ever told you, hey, Sage Kimzey rides 65% of his bulls, and he has an average ride of 85.5 points every time he gets on it, which ranks number one among NFR qualifiers, which ranks number 2 all time, or whatever it may be. Right. And once that I kind of figured out that people were interested in that it wasn't just my own research, my own brain, my own personal biases wanting to do those things. Once I figured out that there was an audience, and that a rodeo audience was interested in that, it kind of really took off from there of everything we could do. Because like I said, there's so many, there's 7 different events that are obviously 7 different sports. And there's so many ways to break them down in terms of, like I said, the average scores and the stock scores. And that's a cool part of it that you don't get in other sports too, is the stock is almost like a pitcher and the bull rider is like a hitter. And you kind of get to compare of how they do against certain types of animals, or how they go away from their hand or into their hand, or whatever it may be. Yeah. And you can tell from this long-winded answer, there's so much out there, and there's so many untapped ways to talk about and discuss rodeo, I think, for a wider audience, other than someone who doesn't know exactly what's going on. Well, those things translate universally. You know that 85 is higher than 80, which is higher than 90. So if the guy goes 95% of the time, that's better than the guy who goes 92% of the time. And that can be translated to a much, much wider audience because it clicks with them right away.
Absolutely, Brett. That's why I appreciate what you're doing and Cowboy Channel does, because, there's so many people out there that liked rodeo, never been in the dirt before, maybe even never been to one, but they liked watching it. But when you put the numbers in front of them and you make it so simple to understand and so much fun to understand, it makes sense. It helps them to follow the events, and it gets them involved in the rodeo without ever having to leave their house. It gets them involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one thing because, like I said, a lot of people, especially where, like I mentioned, I didn't grow up around it. So it's a lot of, when you don't realize what it is, it's guy gets on horse, rides for 8 seconds, gets off, and there's no way to tell what was better or what was worse. So if you can give, 30 seconds about what makes a good ride and why, and then show someone, this is why this was 90 points, this is why this is 80 points. Again, like I said, the simplest way I can put it is everyone knows numbers. We can all count. So if you can just contextualize, this guy averages 2 more points than this guy averages 3 more points than this guy usually does well at these big rodeos, this guy usually doesn't. Any type of information you can give people to get them more interested in their stories, to get them more involved in a cross sport comparison. I mentioned Sage Kimzey. You can be like, hey, Sage Kimzey is a 7-time world champion. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to be like, whoa, that guy's really good. He's Tom Brady. He's got 7 rings. He's won 7 titles. That translates to everything. So if you even just have that basic information, if you're at a rodeo and you're not a huge fan, and you can go to someone, you can say, hey, this guy's got 7 world titles in 8 years. Isn't that awesome? Someone's like, whoa, we got to stop what we're doing. We got to stop drinking our beer. We got to get out of the corn dog line, and we got to go watch this guy ride, because we can all understand that it's an amazing feat what he's accomplished this year. So the more of that, the more numbers that we can give more regular sports fans, because there's a ton of regular sports fans at rodeos all the time.
Yeah.
If we can just give them any information, any sort of stat, anything to cling to that connects them to some of these guys and keeps them coming back, that's really what I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do at the Cowboy Channel.
Well, you can definitely tell in the personal stories, you know, after a ride, y'all are just so good about just making it where people can understand it. So going back to, you weren't in the rodeo at all, you know, you were into sports, which is rodeo, but it was just different. Coming into the Western industry, I'm generational, and you're first generation. But when you came in, what was something that you were like, man, I love this? What was something unique that you can tell me or our audience? Because somebody's listening to us on the radio on KCAA, they might have never been to a rodeo, and they're like, why would I want to go in there? What was something that just changed your mindset?
I think it was something that was actually one conversation, and it has to do with a big point. And once I realized that these guys were athletes, like the same way that I had always pictured an athlete, that they're no different from those guys. I was talking to Josh Clark, who's a steer wrestler, and it was during the American of 2020. So I'd only worked here for 4 or 5 months. And he was talking to me, I think the guy's name is Tom Carney, who does steer wrestling schools, who kind of changed the way that a lot of people look at steer wrestling. And he was telling me about how they put like dots down for their footwork. So they practice for hours, just where their feet land before they even touch a steer, before they even bulldog a steer. It's just time and time again of, you're getting off the horse, where are your feet, where are your hands, where are you trying to grab the steer? And you look at it, something like steer wrestling, especially, which is 3-4 seconds if you do it well. It happens so fast. And it just looks like guy tackling him as a wrestling a steer. It looks like a guy tackling a steer. But until you realize that they, like anyone else, like a basketball player focuses on his footwork, you realize how much time they put into those little things. That completely changed my mindset of it, of like, oh, this isn't just you go and try to tip the thing over when you get off the horse. Because like I said, of all the sports, it looks the most odd to someone who wouldn't know, when you're like, wow, this is so precise. Tie down roping the same way. When you think of what it takes to get your rope on that horse, to sprint to that horse or sprint to that calf and tie it in 7-8 seconds, what an athlete you have to be in, the type of shape you have to be in, and your hand-eye, so the precision and the strength and the speed, all those things, once you realize what it takes to put together what actually goes into a 3 or 4 second bulldogging run, a 7-8 second tie down roping run, that's when you really got to sit back and you're like, man, these guys are just so incredible at what they do. And like I said, it was that one conversation where they just talked about drilling in footwork over and over again. I was like, I would never even think about that, but that makes perfect sense. You can shave 0.2 of a second here. That's the difference between winning a rodeo, not winning a rodeo, going to the NFR, not going to the NFR.
I love that answer, man, so much. And I guarantee you, somebody's going to watch Steer Dogging, you know, this weekend on the Cowboy Channel. They're going to be counting the feet. You know, they're going to say, that's 3 steps, you know, but it just gives them something they might not know, but you know, to break it down, because you know, you heard that, you know, from the guy that's winning. And I think that's so great that people can look for things like that. And it just brings them into the sport, because they've never heard something like that before.
Yeah, something I did, and I'm always I always joke, I stole it straight from GQ, and I'm willing to admit I stole it. They talk about diet and training, and athletes where they'll just ask them, what do you eat on a day-to-day basis? What's your workout schedule? And I did a little bit of it last year. I want to do more of it of, like I said, for a rodeo athlete, for a tie down roper, how do you work out? Why do you do it that way? Is there anything that would surprise people? Well, like what's the hardest part of it? What are you working on? Why do you work on your core? Why do you work on your legs? Why are you doing this workout a certain way? I think that part, like I said, if you can understand the athletes, or you can watch them train, and you see a bull rider or a tie down roper who's doing a lunge and doing bicep curls at the same time to train specific movements before the NFR. Once you see stuff like that, then like I said, you really, really appreciate the precision, the athletic ability, the skill it takes to do some of these things. So those are my favorite ones to do. You talk to Jess Pope, talented bareback rider, of like how much time you spend on the spur board. Why do you spend so much time? All those kind of things, because it really puts in perspective just how finely tuned these athletes are becoming, And that's the thing that I think really surprised people is more and more, the more and more money involved. It's not just going down the road anymore. It's going down the road, taking care of yourself, stretching, strength training, all of those things really year round in rodeo.
Yeah, it's going down the road with a purpose. And
Yeah.
and it's different than it used to be. The purpose was to have some fun, get some stories to tell later on in life, but now it's totally different. And not only the athletic part, especially the ropers, even the bull riders, they partner with that animal. And when you're talking steer, dog, and calf roping, you're not only doing the physical part and you're counting steps, but you're in tune with that horse. And that's just another level of mental athleticism.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize outside looking in is one, how much of a role the horse plays, but two, how much of a role you have in shaping that horse, of how you have to treat the horse a certain way, and how you have to be, like you said, be in tune with your horse. You have to know which setups it works well for, what it doesn't, all those kind of things. So I think that part is really, really interesting, especially in the timed events. And then you look at it, they are athletes in the timed events in that sense. But then you look at the rough stock events where the scores kept the same way for them too. So they are, I mean, anyone will tell you it's 50% horse, 50% bull, 50% human. So those animals, the way they're trained their entire lives. Again, another thing that's just fascinating to me is everything that goes into raising bucking stock. I would love to talk to more stock contractors about that, because some of their programs and some of the ways they've been doing it for years and years and years to be so consistent with their breeding programs and training the horses the way they do is really, really incredible and really eye-opening.
It really is. And you can see they love what they do. And so do the animals for sure. But you can see the stock contractors, they love when they put out just a great animal out there to compete at such a high level.
Yeah, I heard an interview with Pete Carr on Western Sports, not Western Sports, Roundup, a thing on the Cowboy Channel. He said it's like your kid, because you take 3, 4, 5 years before you even know if it can buck. You put in so much time before there's even any sort of remotely anything that resembles a payoff. So you have to be incredibly committed and incredibly sure of your process if you're going to take, like I said, 3, 4 years of your life before you even know if this horse is worth anything.
Right.
Scott will be right back with more.
Hi, I'm Scott Knutson, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. Today, we're going to talk about something I'm really passionate about. Those that know me know I love my coffee. Those that don't, now you know I do. And we've been working on this for several months, and we wanted to get it just right. And we don't put our name on anything unless we feel 100% certain it's the best product we can get. And we've done it. I really believe we've done it. We've created a coffee line, 13 great flavors. I'm going to show you 3 of them. We have K-Cups in all 13 flavors. Here's a Jamaican Me Crazy. It's just a really great coffee. Everyone has great logos. It has a brand, the same brand that's on our horses, our trailers. You know that brand means something, and we wouldn't put it on here if it wasn't good coffee. We have whole bean. This is a great Honduran blend, and it's a whole bean coffee. We have whole bean in all 13 flavors. And then we have a ground coffee. This is a really great one. My wife and I really like this a lot, loved it. So we named it after our daughter, Hades Blend. Everyone has the packaging and the logo of the show, our brand, and I hope you like it. I really believe you will. And we're going to have more flavors coming out soon. We're going to have the pumpkin spices, and then we're going to go to peppermint after that. And please send us your suggestions as well. You can find it at cowboyentrepreneur.shop. Think coffee shop. Cowboyentrepreneur.shop. Thank you so much.
Well, let's talk Western Sports Roundup, since you just brought that up. It's a great show, and it's becoming more so, isn't it, out in the front? You want to talk a little bit about that, kind of where that came from?
Yeah, so it's really just the Western version of SportsCenter. It's an hour every day, and it is really, I mean, the best way that I learned what was going on in the rodeo world, or to follow all the storylines in rodeo, was part of my job. But it was just watching that show, because they do such a good job telling you what's important, telling you what the news is, telling you what to watch out for, giving you highlights from rodeos from that weekend, but also upcoming stuff. So like for Fort Worth, for example, it's really nice because we're based in Fort Worth. So we'll have interviews with people competing that night. We'll have Justin Sports Medicine updates. And again, it is the same thing that you would get in any sort of pregame show for a college football game, a baseball game, whatever it may be. It's got we're talking to all the relevant players for a big rodeo. For example, it's like Denver was a few weeks ago. We'd get the winners of Denver coming through for interviews, just talking about their performance and stuff like that. And like I said, it really does set the tone of this is what's going on in the world of rodeo. This is why you should care. And this is when we get later in the season, this is what it means for the NFR. This is what it means for the standings. I think that was kind of the next iteration of the show. This past year was not just here's some highlights, here's what's going on, here's what's going on, and here's what it means. Here's why we're talking to this person. They just won this rodeo, just won them this much money. Here's what that means in the quest to the NFR. Here's where they are in the world standings now. And from my background, that's exactly the kind of stuff I like, that part of it, of just that little extra of, here's the person, here's the ride, here's the stat, here's why you should care, here's why it's important for the rodeo world at large.
I love that. I love the sports center for the rodeo world. I love that. That's such a great analogy, because it is, and it's so high energy. There's a lot of information, but it's fun, and it's a great way to keep up with what's going on the road for someone who's maybe not out there. Yeah,
especially it's a show that just didn't really exist. There was no way to keep up with rodeo in that way before, and everyone who works on that show, it helps that they have people who are, from the anchors to the producers to whoever's on the show, they're all so knowledgeable from the top down that it doesn't take much for them to put the show together, because they have that knowledge that's just been from being around it for so long.
Well, there's so many rodeos going on, and so many specialty events going on. To put it all together in 1 hour, that's a big job, and to have it out in a way where people can understand what's going on. And I guess that's part of what you do. But on the website and with the different rodeos, can you take us behind the scenes a little bit? So there's different rodeos, especially in the summertime. There's rodeos everywhere. How do y'all get them all together? Do you have like regional groups working rodeos, or how does that work?
Well, we have so we have our own crew, our own truck at some of them. Some of them we just send out an encoder, and we just kind of plug into their video, their arena feed, and they can send it right to the Cowboy Channel. So that's how a lot of smaller ones get to the network. But in terms of the website, we kind of follow the lead of the network. So whatever is important on the network, I like to kind of think of it as every week we have kind of a 1A and a 1B rodeo, where this is the rodeo that's going to be, if all things being equal, this is the one that's going on the Cowboy Channel, the linear network. These are the ones that are streaming. And for us, that's kind of the model we follow. So Fort Worth, for example, is going on. Big Texas rodeo.
Right.
We're there every night. It's every night in the Cowboy Channel. And because that's a bigger rodeo, because that impacts the NFR race, we're not just popping in for one day at the beginning, one day at the end, and letting you know what happened. We're letting you know everything in between. So every time a bracket ends, every time the semifinals or a wild card, or there's a new progression in the rodeo, we have a story up on the website, which again is something that we're trying to do more of, where it's not just pop in, hey, this rodeo started, here's some highlights kind of thing, here's who won. It's pop in, here's who won this bracket, here's who won in this event, here's how we got to these semifinals, here's who did the best in their bracket to get to the semifinals, here's who barely snuck in, here's the wild card who maybe shouldn't have been here, whatever it may be. We really want to tell you the whole story from start to finish, because it's hard for anyone to keep up with a rodeo that's 2 or 3 weeks long, much less someone who's maybe not as invested, who's invested maybe just the winners, or goes to one performance of Fort Worth every year, or whatever it may be. We want it to be easy and accessible for the diehards and the people just getting into it to follow and watch the rodeo unfold and tell the story of getting to point A to point B, not just here's point A, here's point B.
Absolutely. Well, Western Sports Roundup, the website, the social media. So someone that does go to one rodeo out of 13 or out of 10 or however many there is, like Fort Worth, they can go in knowing who's leading and yes, who's riding. And they feel like they've been there for all of them, but maybe their family budget or work commitments, they can only go to one. But for that one event, they know who is winning when they walk in. They feel a part of it, and I like that. I think that's really neat, because it's hard to go to every single rodeo in a situation like that.
The comparison I always use is kind of like a golf tournament. So if you're covering the Masters, let's say, you don't just, it would be like if the Masters, the way that it used to be, it would be like if the Masters came around and you reported who had the best score Thursday, who had the best score Friday, who had the best score Saturday, who had the best score Sunday, who won the golf tournament. Well, a lot of these rodeos, Fort Worth not being one of them, but a lot of them, they take an average. So it doesn't, if we're giving you the highlights of who won everything, well, that doesn't mean anything if you win Thursday. If you don't win the entire rodeo, it'd be the same thing. It doesn't matter if you shoot 65 on Thursday, if you don't make the cut and go win the golf tournament. So I just, like I said, that full story is what makes golf tournaments fun, or what makes football seasons, the playoffs fun, is a team like the Bengals, the underdog, that story, about Joe Burrow, they shouldn't have beaten the Chiefs, but they did anyway. That makes that story, that game, that much better. Same thing for rodeo. If you know that this guy needs 89 points to advance, or needs this to win the average, whatever it may be, and that in the back of your head, so you can tell someone, you can watch, oh, we're not just watching this guy to see if he rides this bull, we're seeing if he gets 87.5 to win the rodeo here. That's way more impactful. That gets people way more locked in on those rides when they're in the building and when they're watching on the Cowboy Channel, which I think the Cowboy Channel, Western Sports Roundup, like we mentioned, but the broadcasts do a good job of letting you know, here's how this guy got here, here's what he needs to do, here's what he needs to do to advance, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's important on the television aspect too, of someone watching, if they didn't catch that stuff online, is how can we make this important to them right now in this broadcast?
I love that. It's like vested passion. They know exactly what's going on. They got a passion to see if this guy wins or this lady wins. And it's so fun whenever I go out and travel around the town and someone's like, man, I was watching this rodeo the other night on Cowboy Channel and this guy rode this horse, and they've never been on a horse, but it's so fun. It's kind of like you're saying golf. Somebody that watches the Masters and goes out and talks about it like they were there. And I think that's what you're bringing to the table. It's so important for the industry because it is growing. I think what you're doing is helping it grow.
I was just going to say, that's exactly what we want to do. If we can take, because we have so much research out there that shows that there's X amount of people that are really passionate about rodeo, but Justin McKee says this all the time. There's a ton of people who live in, let's say, Red Bluff, California. Their only thing is they go to the Red Bluff Roundup once a year, and that's their rodeo intake for the year. But if we can take, let's say 1,000 people do that every year, if we can turn 100 of them into fans and make them go to a second rodeo, then make those people go to 2 rodeo performances a year, but we can make them go to 3. And if we can do anything online, we can do anything on social media, we can do anything in a broadcast that gives them a little morsel to care even a little bit more, that difference between 2 to 3 performances a year that they watch or attend, I mean, you multiply that by 100,000 people and you've got 100,000 new rodeo fans, or at least 100,000 new eyeballs on it for X amount of performances. And so that's what I want to do, is any story, any stat, any morsel of information I can give you that makes you care a little bit to tune in just one more time.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. If you tune in one more time this year, then maybe tune in one more time next year, then maybe you go to the NFR the year after that, and it just snowballs from there, of a person that you got all beginning from them going to one rodeo performance in their hometown one time. It can really go downhill from there.
See, I love that. I love that. Just getting them vested. And I think having the website and your social media is just so easy to maneuver. It's so easy, you look and you can find exactly what you want. And even if you go to that one rodeo a year, who's coming in, what's going on. And then you get to see the rodeo you're at on the website, on the Cowboy Channel website, tie-in. So
yeah, I think too, with like highlights, for example, I always tell people that my elevator pitch for the Cowboy Channel Instagram is, if you want to know what happened in rodeo last night, it's on the Cowboy Channel Instagram. We'll have all the best stuff from the biggest rodeo. And again, something we try to do, this is just a subtle thing, but like a little nerdy thing that I like to talk about, is in the captions of those rodeos. It's no longer, if you notice, no one will ever notice this, like I said, but those captions now are more informative than just, here's the ride. It's now Tough Cooper 8 seconds in the tie down roping to win this bracket in Fort Worth. You'll see him again in the semifinals next Thursday. Stuff like that. So again, if you're scrolling through and you're not a big rodeo fan, you're going, oh, that was cool. This Tough Cooper guy, he's got a big smile. He pumps his hat. He seems interesting. I'd like to see him again. You go, oh, he's great. He did a good job. He'll be back on Thursday. Maybe I'll tune in on Thursday. And again, we get 10, 15,000 impressions on some of these things. I'm not trying to get everybody, but if you get 100 of those 15,000 people to tune in on Thursday, that's a huge accomplishment with your social media, to be able to do those kind of things, which that's something that I don't think a lot of people think about, is if you can just slice off small bits of audiences one at a time. And if you get one person to care from one post and then 2 to care from the next, that's how you get a big audience. That's how you get them to stay. And so things like that, as little as it can be, of telling them more in a caption, might get more people to watch rodeo, get them to follow the Cowboy Channel, and get them to come back.
I love that, man. I love it. Getting me fired up.
Thank you for listening to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. Scott will be right back with more. more information on Scott Knudsen, the Cowboy Entrepreneur, visit us online at cowboyentrepreneur.com.
All right, take out your phone right quick if you're sitting at home. Pull up your camera like you're going to take a picture. You don't have to actually take a picture of that QR code, but just hold it up there and it'll you can touch on the screen. Once it recognizes it, it'll automatically take you to the Cowboy Channel app. It'll take you to the free side. You can download that app. There's lots of information on the free side. If you like what you see, but by the way, I guarantee you're going to, then there's a paid side that you can look into all the rodeos that we do and everything that goes on at the Cowboy Channel.
So NFR, when it was in Fort Worth, it's like in the back, in your backyard, you know, or Cowboy Channel's backyard. It's a big facility. And then you go to Vegas, it's a different facility. Both of them are beautiful, but Cowboy Channel goes out there for what, 3 weeks?
Yeah, two weeks usually minimum.
So a long time. So how do you work that? You know, because you got websites, social media, the shows, the announcers. How do y'all manage that? Because that's tough. Either one is tough.
Yeah, it's really hard. Vegas, I mean, when it's in Vegas, but just NFR especially, that's something that, like, by the time early October rolls around, you're already thinking for NFR, how can we do things differently? What worked last year? What worked better? What we need to do more of or less of. But from my perspective, it's really my day-to-day is driven on what are the most important things that people need to know about the rodeo. So that's kind of how I figure out my time when I'm actually there. So the first thing every day, we have the highlights that go up, but the first thing every morning is a recap. Here's what happened that night. Here's why it's important. Here's the stats. Here's the full scores, all that kind of stuff. And then from all the shows that we have, again, we just take the best stuff from our tailgate show, from Western Sports Roundup, from the pre-show. So we have to work really closely with production, but a lot of it is still just kind of flying by the seat of our pants of what's your best story? What's something that, like, do you have anything good? Do you have any good photos? Whatever it is at that time, whatever's pressing. But at its core, it's the basic communication of knowing what's working on the television side, what they're working on, what their big storylines are, and then being able to decipher that on the website in the easiest way possible, or decipher that on Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, to get the most out in the easiest way possible for everybody. Because especially NFR, I mean, that's a rodeo like nothing else, where it all just happens so fast. That you blink and you're like, did we do that today? I don't even know, because the next performance already started. So
what's it like, Brett? What's it like? Are you just sitting in a room and everybody's calling you like the old editors of the newspaper, where you're just picking up the phone and what's the hottest story? Or what's it like for you? So if you're sitting in the chair and you're trying to put out this great website and social media, and there's rodeos going on, you got a 2-week rodeo in Vegas, and how do you do it? Is it just people calling you all day long?
It's a lot of stuff. So it's a lot of checking in with our own team. We're kind of self-sufficient in that sense. So it's not even really checking with our own team. That was a bad way to phrase it, but checking in on our own shows, because obviously we don't have time to go 6, 7, 8 hours and watch all these shows. So it's one, let the producers know, like, hey, give me your best stuff ahead of time. Whatever you think is going to be good, whatever your best pieces are, your best sound bites, send it to us so we have that. But then a lot of it is on our own, going through and watching the stuff from the previous day and going, oh, that was good, didn't like it, or love that, that wasn't, didn't like that, that should be online, that shouldn't, that kind of stuff. So it really is a lot of our own policing of our own content, of just trying to sift through it all and get the best stuff on there. In terms of the actual day of, it's not quite grabbing phones and stuff, but there's a lot of people don't know this. When you go to the NFR in Las Vegas, if you're covering it, you're in like a little auxiliary gym below the arena watching it on a TV. So like when I'm at the NFR, if I'm not in the hallway doing interviews, which I was sometimes this year, if I'm not in that hallway, which is even worse because you're actually watching on a small TV and you can hear everyone and like see the shoots. So like the guys are coming in and out and you're like trying to peek up because you're like, oh, can I catch a little corner of the ride here? But you usually can't. And so that's where you are. So it's really our team of 4 people down there, and we are frantically just being like, hey, do you have this clip? Do you have this sponsor tag? Do you have this, this, and this? Is that caption up? Is this up? So that's when it gets really, really hectic. Hey, who's got the, and then they'll walk the people down for the interviews too in there. So you'd be like, hey, someone go grab a quote from him. Well, I grab this clip. Well, I grab this sponsor tag and I send you this photo. then eventually we merge it all together. And that's just to get one clip on social media. So again, a lot of people don't see or realize that we're kind of yelling at each other for 5-10 minutes, making sure everything goes together, because it is those little things of having the right tag on there, having the right ride, making sure it cuts off at the right place, having a sponsor logo, whatever it may be. It's so much more than just pulling and sending it out there. So that's kind of the dance that we have to do amongst our own team every night.
Oh my goodness. Plus you're underground.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, oh, I've been to 30 straight NFR performances now, which is cool. But like in Fort Worth, at least we were in like the baseball press box behind home plate. So you're high up, but you could see it. When you're in Vegas, so I've been to 20 of those in Vegas. I haven't actually like physically seen a ride or run in the Thomas and Mack Center without it being on the little TV. I think one time Stetson Wright had a re-ride this year where everyone kind of cleared out. And so I got to watch that live. That's about it. There you
go. So one ride out of 20 of them. So that's terrible. That's not great.
Yeah, whatever. I was gonna say, whatever the math on 15 a night for 10 nights over X amount of, it's whatever it is. I don't actually get to view a lot of them in person. It's all on little monitors.
Golly. So what's one of your favorite rodeos to go to? As maybe doing what you do, but what's a fun one for you?
Cheyenne's awesome. Cheyenne is, I mean, that's one that I recommend to people. Like, if you want to know what this is like in its purest form, with the music and the big stadium, the long start, and some of those timed events, I think that's the one where you're like, this one you can have fun at, but this is a rodeo of these big historic rodeos. Because like Fort Worth is fun, but I know a lot of people in Fort Worth who go, like, you can go to Fort Worth, you can go to Dickies Arena, you can have a good time without watching a single ride the entire time, which is cool, but it's not the spirit of the event. Whereas Cheyenne, those grandstands are so big, there's not a bad seat. It's easy to get around, and it's really cool to see kind of rodeo as intended. They do a good job of explaining to the audience, getting the first time people involved. It's a real full scope of what the sport is all about.
They do. They're great for recruitment, man. They bring them in, and the people that have been around it for so long, they go back because it is just so iconic.
Yeah. So
iconic. So when you're doing the website and you have the different rodeos coming in, what do you look at? So I know it's 1 and 1A and how you're placing them, but what else are you looking for that one little extra deal? Because you can just tell the website and the social media is getting so much stronger.
A lot of it is, I mentioned Western Sports Roundup. We take a lot of lead from that. So we'll pull a lot of stuff from Western Sports Roundup, a lot of their best interview clips or moments or highlight packages. But a ton of it too is we have someone every single night who watches 1 or 2 rodeos. So if it's, whether it's me or someone else, we have 3-4 people, and every single, like I said, every single night or every single performance, I should say, because there's multiple on some of the weekends, most weekends in the summer, you'll have 2 or 3 a day. And we have someone watch everything. So anything that goes on the Cowboy Channel, we see. And that's the biggest key. That's the biggest advantage. That's why our social media is so successful, is because we have first dibs and first crack at everything. So it's really just, I mentioned policing yourself. It's what did we find interesting? We watch the rodeo live. Obviously going to get out all the winners, all the best times, that kind of stuff. But was there a funny dance at one point? Was one of the Mutton Buster kids extra
funny dance?
Yeah. Did the junior bull riders ride all 5 bulls in between? Did the chuck wagon? Was it a really good chuck wagon race? Anything like that we can get a little bit of extra. And then obviously there's the easy stuff, like, was there a good quote in an interview? Did they say something funny? Stuff like that. But anything we can squeeze extra out of these performances, because we get plugged into exactly what's going on in the arena. We watch it all live, 3-4 hours every night. And we have someone who's dedicated to that. So that's where a lot of it comes from. This guy had a good quote. We saw this funny thing. We saw whatever it may be. And I think, again, that's something that we want to do more of this year, is not just show you all the best stuff, but really make you feel like you were there is right. The next big thing, the next big initiative. So it is more of those mutton busting highlights, the chuck wagon, the stuff like that in Fort Worth, which has so much extra stuff. It's contextualizing all that for people too, of, you're not just going to see all these athletes compete. You're going to see so much more here, and so many funny or cool or interesting things happen over the course of 3 or 4 hours. It's just up to us to decide what was best and get it all out now.
Yeah, what a responsibility, man. But y'all do so great at it. You know, it is a responsibility though, because there's so much effort that goes into it. And you know, you never know what's going to click with that viewer or that subscriber, you know, and that's, so how do you run demographics, or how do you know what is going to work?
we have tools for that. We have Google Analytics, which is for our website. That's just general page views, clicks, bounce rates, stuff like that. But we also have some really interesting social tools. One's called CrowdTangle, which will show you a post and not only how it does in relation to the rest of your community or the rest of your sector, but also how it does related to similar posts posted at a similar time, and it kind of assigns it a score. So you can really see not just, oh, this got X amount of likes, page views, comments, whatever. It's that, but it's this got 2.3 times more than the average post for that time period. And a lot of what I've done, I mentioned the stats side for the sports side, but I also, everyone makes fun of me at the Cowboy Channel, or everyone that I work with, because I geek out over this stuff. I live in the numbers of our social stuff, our engagement rate, our monthly page views, all those things. So it's those tools, but it's also my minor obsession of everything, of what did well, what was our best event, why did this do well, was it something with the caption, was it something with this, should we do more of this, less of this? So we've got all of our little tools, but like anything, it's trial and error of figuring out what people like and don't like, and that's something with 2 years of knowledge just back there that you kind of start to get a feel for, of like, oh, I think people like this story, I think people like this quote, and from doing it every single day, it really does help. It's the best way to learn how to do something, just like anything, is you live in it every single day.
Absolutely. I think that's so important, just living it, like you say, but also just being obsessive about the numbers and what's working, and then giving the people more of what's working. It just feeds them, and it just gets them involved in it, because you sure as heck don't want to get somebody involved in rodeo, watching rodeo and Western sports, and then all of a sudden they lose interest. You got them, you got to keep them, and I love that you're always trying to get better.
Yeah, it's like anything. People are interested in what they care about. And just like any sport, you to look at whatever it may be, high school football or whatever, if someone cares about it, it's what they talk about at the coffee shop. If they don't care about it, they don't talk about it. So same thing in rodeo, of how can we put stuff on the website day in and day out that every time you come back, you care in some way and you want to talk about it more and more and more and more, like you said, of giving them what they want. And that is a lot of it. It's like any website content publishing medium. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's really just holding up a mirror, that everyone in all of these industries, or in all these parts of the industry, they have tools and they're just giving you more of what you want to see. No one's purposely giving you crap. And it's the same thing with the Cowboy Channel. If we look at what people like, what they don't like, what athletes do well, what athletes don't do well. And not to say that we won't post someone because they don't do well, but it's like anything. If you've got your 50 power players, Tough Cooper, people want to see Tough Cooper, Stetson Wright, we want to see Stetson Wright. So I'd be lying if I said we didn't do more of that stuff, because that's just what the audience clicks on. That's what they want to see, is more Stetson Wright, and especially in a not younger sport, but in a sport like rodeo, where you don't have as many stars, that if you can get them to care about stars, well, that trickles down to everyone else. Because if you get someone who just wants to watch Stetson Wright ride bulls, well, he's going to watch all 10 guys in the performance. He's going to watch everyone ride bulls, and maybe Roscoe Jarbo, whomever it may be, gets a new fan out of the deal for someone who tuned in to see Stetson Wright. Absolutely.
And by educating them, even just a little bit on count steps, I got to go back to that. They're going to do it, or how they whatever they're doing in their sport to give them that extra advantage, and it's just going to make them in tune more. They follow their rider. Now they understand why they follow their person, I love that. So what advice would you give to somebody that maybe called plays in their backyard playing sports one time, and now they might want to work for a network or do what you do? How would you tell somebody to get to that level?
The first thing I would say is, especially in this media industry, sports media, if you want to call the Cowboy Channel that, I suppose I would, not in the traditional sense, but I would say just say yes to stuff. Just be willing. Like I would have never in a million years foresaw myself covering rodeo, being on TV, talking about rodeo. But when I was offered this job, I could sense that there would be opportunities here that there wouldn't be at NFL Network or whatever you want to say, any other sports network, because they're so ingrained in people. You have to be so high up to even get opportunities there. That here, I'm going to learn so much. I've already learned so much. And that's what I would say is If someone wants you to go on TV and talk about Major League Fishing, I don't care if you know nothing about Major League Fishing, you're a fishing reporter now. If you want to talk about motocross, you're a motocross reporter now. If someone's going to get you to do what you want to do and give you the opportunity to do it, you can't say I only played basketball and football. That's all I can talk about, because there's only so many jobs to talk about basketball and football. And the amount of jobs for the amount of people that want to do it is so small. So if you can set yourself apart doing minor league baseball or doing battle bots or whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. It's just take your opportunities where you can get them, because I've already seen so many things that I've learned, so many things that are going to open up for me now from having this job, that if I would have said rodeo, I don't know rodeo, I would never had that opportunity. But instead it was rodeo. What do I need to know about rodeo? What's as much as I can learn? What's this fire hose I can drink out of? So people who know that I don't come from a rodeo background respect what I have to say. And I think that if I can get the respect of some people in this background, then I can take that to football or golf or whatever, and I can say, hey, I learned how to talk about rodeo in a way people understood, and I didn't know anything about rodeo 2 or 3 years ago. Think of what I can do with football, a sport that I've watched my entire life, or basketball, a sport I've watched my entire life. And I think so many people just look at the end road of where they want to go. They don't think that the small town minor league baseball team is actually where they're going to learn and sharpen their skills more than anywhere they would ever imagine.
That's awesome, Brett, man. And saying yes, that's so important for anything. Just like you say, saying yes. But what you say, the minor league team, wherever you are in your life, enjoy it and just say yes. But I think when you get to that you have that opportunity and you say yes, you jump all the way in like you did, because not being in the Western industry, now the Western industry surrounds you because you're helping them look good. You're bringing attention and fans to them, and they appreciate it. That's, it's just the truth, and if you didn't take that responsibility, it might not be that way. So that's a testament of what you do. And I think what you said by saying yes and getting in the industry, owning your job and caring for those people that are working so hard is so important.
Yeah, and again, minor league baseball, use that example again. If you show that same respect to minor league baseball and you treat it like you're covering the World Series, people will see that. And it's the same thing with rodeo. Again, using myself as an example, I don't know how much respect I have, if anyone even knows who I am, but if they look at the Cowboy Channel, I think they'd be shocked to figure out that it isn't run by a lot of people on the website who know or who knew a ton about rodeo coming in. But it's run by people who really, really, really care. Like every word awesome. That is on that website, I care so much about making it look good or being in the right place or being something that people want to learn. But I think that can translate to just about anything, is that if you show up and you really care about what you do and you really respect the people around you doing it and you respect the audience that you're trying to do it for, then that's all that matters. Then any of your skills, any of your background, that can all be learned. But I think the hardest part about any of this is with these smaller jobs is getting people who are really, really passionate about it and who really, really care about the day-to-day of how the product looks. And I can confidently say, myself on down, from everyone at the Cowboy Channel, is they really, really do care how those Instagram highlights look, how that website looks, why certain videos are in certain places of the website. It's very important to everyone. And like you said, the ultimate goal is to get more eyes on the Cowboy Channel, because more eyes on the Cowboy Channel is more eyes on the Cowboys, and more eyes on the Cowboys, more eyes on rodeo. And that's more money and prestige and fans and all of those things for not just rodeo, but the Western industry and them as a whole. So you did a better job of saying it, but
I don't know.
I hope everyone realizes that you're right, that the rising tide lifts all boats. So if we're passionate at the Cowboy Channel about getting this information out and getting these stories out, it's better for the industry as a whole. And obviously I'm very biased to say that, but I don't think anyone could dispute that more exposure, more eyeballs is bad for any industry.
Absolutely. It's great. And the Cowboy Channel, they all have other things than just rodeo. Y'all just had the Best of Mexico celebration with the Diaz family, Jerry and Stacy and Nicholas. And it was a sellout at Dickies Arena there in Fort Worth, and y'all covered it. And what is that like? Is that something different? You have to have different people on that?
We have, I think actually someone in Fort Worth, Garrett Yerrigan, is a rodeo announcer. I don't know what his role, and he's a fan experience something in Fort Worth, but he had a quote the other day on Western Sports Roundup about how you want to, when you have those things, when you have all those extra things, you just want to have something about it that gets people coming back to the rodeo performances, but then sets it apart in a way that they understand that it's unique. So he had an analogy, again, I wish I wrote this down or something, because it's about how you don't want to give them the whole cake right away. And those things, the Best of Mexico celebration, things like the Cowboys of Color or Ranch Rodeos or whatever it may be, they're just little slices of what make the entire week of the Fort Worth Rodeo. So the same way we want to cover the Fort Worth Rodeo, the action from start to finish, we want to cover the spectacle of the rodeo, of the event that's going to be in town for 3-4 weeks. We want to cover that on the full scale too, which includes more of those kind of events, more of those offshoot type rodeos, more of those one-off things that some of these places do.
Well, it just brings you next year. Like next year, they're already saying, "Hey, I need to go to that next year," and you get people excited for next year.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure. And the Rose Parade, that's so cool too. And you know, a dear friend of ours, Ada Patton Gates, she's the inspector for it. But Cowboy Channel is right there in Pasadena for the Rose Parade.
Yeah, you can see behind me all these things. They're all pins from the Rose Parade, and so every year we have people down there, and they collect the pins, and we build a float every year, and that's really cool too, because the Rose Parade itself, we get comments on this all the time on the Cowboy Channel, RFD TV too, for that matter. There's so many places that are going away from the tradition of the Rose Parade, and they're taking their broadcasts and they're condensing them, and they're showing you less and less and less. And so this year especially was kind of cool because we did the exact opposite. We said, all right, on the Cowboy Channel, we're just going to show you more.
I love it.
If you want the Rose Parade from the fullest perspective, if you want it on Facebook, if you want it on TV, if you want to see more behind the scenes stuff, if you want to see all the floats for a longer time, we'll just show you more. And if you don't want to watch it on ABC, NBC, some of these traditional places that aren't filling the time the same way anymore, that's fine. Come on over here, because we'll show it the way that you remember in 1980 of how it used to be and how we used to spend time looking at all these floats and really talking about them, and really talking about the spectacle of the event. And that's something that with the Cowboy Channel and RFD TV not being on traditional cable television or broadcast television, I should say, we were able to make those decisions of, we're not confined to 3 hours for the broadcast. We can make it 4 if we want to. We can do a Rose Parade pre-show. We can do all those things. And again, with rodeo, to tie it back to that, it's the same way of, it used to be if you were lucky to be on CBS Sports Network or Great American Country or some of these networks, they'd say, okay, you can be on, but you got 2 hours. So take your whole show and make it 2 hours. And again, we do the exact opposite. We say, all right, we're not just going to take the whole show. We'll show you the mutton busting. We'll show you the chuck wagons. We'll do a pre-show. We'll do a post-show. We'll do all the highlights afterward. We'll do all those things, because now we don't just have those 2 hours. We have 4 or 5 hours to work with, and we're not just going to turn on drag racing afterward or whatever CBS Sports Network would do and be on to the next thing.
Yeah. That's why I love the independence and the freedom you have to do that, because our family watched on Cowboy Channel and watch the parade. We watch, because we like that. If you want to watch a parade, you want to watch it, or watch your, you want to see everything. And that's what we appreciate, is that freedom. Also, those notebooks back there, we were talking a little bit about that, about the founder and what he did. And you don't have to pull one out, but would you mind just telling that story?
Yeah,
I think that's so cool, man. It's a testament of RFD and the network and Cowboy Channel, and it really resonates.
Yeah, we mentioned that we can kind of do whatever we want, or we have more time, and whatever we want includes listening to people too. So there's those binders, but they're dated every day from the 2020 NFR. And our founder, Patrick Gotch, he will look at all of them. If you send him an email, it gets printed out, and he reads every single one, and he based a lot of the 2021 decisions for the NFR off what people told him from 2020, what worked, what didn't work, what we should do more of, what we should do less of, all those kind of things. It gets through to him. They're right behind me. He reads every single one. So whether these are just NFR, whether it's NFR or Rose Parade or the production of a certain rodeo, it's anything that comes across the desk, it goes straight to the top every time that you email us with any sort of suggestion, which I think is really cool, especially when you're broadcasting the sport the way we're doing it. It's never been done like this before. No one's going to know everything, especially the first couple of years of figuring out how rodeo looks the best, how a professional rodeo season unfolds on TV. So everyone's open to suggestions all the time, because a lot of them are really good and a lot of them actually get used. And same thing I said before, we just want to hold a mirror up to the audience and give them more of what they want. So if they want more in-arena feed, in-arena announcers, I know that's one thing at the beginning We do a lot of broadcast stuff. We go back to the studio all the time where people said, hey, we want to hear the arena announcer. We want to hear Bob Tallman. We want to know exactly what's going on in there. Great. We'll take our guys out of it. We'll show you more Bob Tallman. You'll hear what he's saying. You won't hear what our guys are saying back in the studio. So things like that, it does get to the desk of the people that make the decisions, and they do make those decisions based off what people are telling them.
Man, that just says a lot to have, when somebody's writing an email and you'll print it, put it in a notebook, you'll go over it. That much influence on a major network like the Cowboy Channel, RFD. That's just really, well, I think that's why y'all are excelling. You're listening to the fan base and doing more of what they want. And you can definitely tell. So what's next for you and for the Cowboy Channel, the website?
Oh, another loaded question. I think the biggest thing is we do want those bigger rodeos, the Fort Worths, the St. Angelos, the Cheyennes, those bigger rodeos that are bigger, that do impact the standings more, that are a more important piece in shaping how the NFR is going to look. We want to treat them bigger. We want to do more coverage for Fort Worth, more pregame shows, more postgame shows, all of those things. So online, we want to mirror that too. Like I've mentioned, the start to finish thing, but I really do want, major isn't the right word like in some other sports, but I want the audience to be able to tell when there's a big rodeo, when there is more money on the line, when there is more prestige to win it. You don't just see that in the highlights. You can feel that on the website. You can feel that in the broadcast. And again, our broadcasts do a great job. They started last summer doing a really, really good job at some of these bigger events of sending a truck and doing a pregame show on site and just letting people know, like a little thing like that. It's not subtle, is not the right word, but if you send a truck to Reno, you have Janie Johnson and Justin McKee doing the pregame show live from Reno. That sends the message to everyone watching that this is worth your time to watch, because we're willing to take our people, put them on planes, and drive a production truck here so you can see what is going on at Reno for this pregame show. We'll have a lot of them on the Cowboy Channel lawn for the tailgate part this year. We won't be on site as much, but it's the same kind of thing of, you see an hour-long pregame show giving you all the storylines for whatever's going on in Calgary. You then know instantly, oh, this is big. Something important is going on in the world of rodeo today, because we have this show. We have these people talking about it. We have these interviews beforehand. And again, the website needs to reflect that too, so everyone can feel the big events and feel more the ebbs and flows of a season and how that shakes out, and how everything these guys are doing every step of the way impacts the ultimate goal of the NFR. So we don't want the NFR to hang over us necessarily, but we do want it to be more understood of what the end goal and what everyone is chasing here is the same thing. And here's why what's going on this weekend on the Cowboy Channel is important to that chase.
Man, I love it. I love it. Well, it's just the buildup, when you're taking them there and when you have that commitment, it's so cool. So social media, Instagram, Facebook, someone's driving down the highway right now, listening to us on KCA or watching the podcast. What's the easiest way for them to find you, follow you, like you, subscribe? What's the best ways?
Just go to the Cowboy, just type in Cowboy Channel everywhere, Instagram, Facebook. We are Cowboy Channel on both those, Cowboy_channel on Twitter. But again, I would just say Facebook and Instagram is really where our bread is buttered. And my elevator pitch once more is, if you want to know what happened that night, you go to our Facebook page, you go to our Instagram page, we'll tell you. We'll have all the best rides, we'll have all the action, and we'll have, I've mentioned it many, many times, but we'll have why this action is important and why you should care about the action the next night, and how all that influences that. So I think that's the biggest thing, is the Cowboy Channel Instagram is really the ultimate home of rodeo. And I've been saying that for a year or two, and I've been really, really proud to say it, and how fast we've gotten to the point where I'm comfortable directing people there, telling them that and making that pitch and saying, hey, we'll give you anything you need to want to know more about the sport, to want to know who the major players are, and want to know why all this is important and why the heck anyone cares about any of these rodeos. We'll do a good job explaining that to you. So that's my big thing on that. Once again, Cowboy Channel on Instagram and Facebook.
Well, you can tell they listen because the notepads are full of emails right back there. And, and Western Sports Lifestyle too, man. I love the way you said it's like Sports Center for the Western world. And they can just go to your social media to find them, or do they have their separate one? What's the best way for them to find them?
Those are all the clips and all the stories from there. Those are on Facebook. Facebook is the best place to find those, other than the linear television network, Cowboy Channel Plus app. I'd be remiss too if I didn't mention that we do have the Cowboy Channel Plus app that you can download. You can watch from anywhere, $9.99 a month, and it is every rodeo that is on the Cowboy Channel we have on there. So any replay you want to see, if you can't watch live, any rodeo. So we have, like I said, we have Fort Worth on, but this weekend's a good example. Fort Worth's going to be on the Cowboy Channel, but we're streaming Rapid City all weekend. So if you want to watch Rodeo Rapid City, you can watch every performance live on there. You can go back to all the Extreme Bulls, all the Extreme Bronx, see all those performances on there. So our app's also a great place to get all that stuff, to watch live rodeo. It works everywhere you go. I would watch during the NFR. I'd be in the hallway trying to get information for interviews. So I'd be watching Butch and Jeff on my phone, seeing if they gave me any tidbits of knowledge. So it does work, and we just still do use it. Like at rodeos, I was still using it to watch rodeo. So the app is terrific for all that stuff. And like I said, if you're a rodeo fan, you'd be hard pressed to find more information in a smaller place than the Cowboy Channel app as well.
The app is so cool, and I know we're running out of time, but it just has all the rodeos, and then it has some of the shows at the bottom, but all the rodeos just listed straight down, and there's so many, so you can watch rodeo all day long. You just leave it on. But it's really neat. So if you want to see what a rodeo looks like in California as opposed to somewhere else, you can do that. It's really neat.
Yeah, it is. It is 24/7 on there, and like I said, our thing that we say with a lot of pride is you can watch it anywhere, and you can take it on the go with you. And I've definitely used it before for that, and it's everything. I mean, talk about it in a way it's never been done before. I know we're running out of time, but like it used to be a luxury to get the final performance of some of these big rodeos on there. Now you get the big rodeos, you get every performance and every smaller rodeo you could possibly imagine simultaneously. So went from 2 hours of rodeo a week available to the general public to hundreds at any time on your phone. And really, when you think about it that way, really, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much, but it is kind of cool to be a part of talking about 0 to 100. It is really a 0 to 100 experience. Like I said, you used to be lucky to get a few hours a week, and now you can pick up your phone and you can see dozens of hours from just last night if you wanted to.
It's so great. It really is. We'll sit at the barn and look at the rodeo, whatever, but it's a great app. It is a great app. Well, Brett, thank you so much for being on the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, man. I had a great time. I know everybody's going to watch the show, watch your rodeo, and watch your rodeo on Cowboy Channel. Look at it a little bit different knowing you behind doing it.
I hope so. I really enjoyed this as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Brett. Congratulations on everything with Cowboy Channel.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the great sponsors of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. If you or your business is interested in being a sponsor of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, please call our office at 830-992-1786 or visit our website, cowboyentrepreneur.com.